I mean, those young champions representing nutrition internationally, I mean, very, very vocal. And what a discussion around what it means to be a real man in your community. I mean, I personally hear discussions like that all the time within my social groups and other social groups. So it's definitely one to sort of mull over.
Definitely to graft. And more great sessions to choose from this afternoon. Most of our governments have committed to healthcare for everyone, universal healthcare. But what is the reality for young people trying to access healthcare in these times of workforce shortages? We have a session coming up called From Silos to Systems, Bridging Adolescence into the Healthcare Agenda. Another great session to look forward to, with an incredible title, is about empowering young people in matters of sexuality education. It's called Ask Us What We Need, Youth-Led Approaches to Redefining Sexuality Education.
Now, we have had a lot of fantastic music in this show so far. That Leonis to Genius number is, you know, it's firmly in my head, just running round and round and round. And it's such a great way to do advocacy, which is why we're proud to present the winners of the Art for Wellbeing Music Awards. Check this out.
My piece addresses that. It addresses a mental health issue, and it also gives semi-solutions to how people can help reduce the issues that come with mental health. And I feel like it's really relevant to the young people to listen to. And I would also encourage them to listen to other contestant species, because they were also addressing well-being issues that were not mental. And I feel like if some of the people close to me or some of the people in my circle could listen to that, those well-being issues being addressed by other contestants could help improve them.
Oh God, our demons, thoughts we can't escape. It mentally eats us and lead to distress, depression, anxiety, become our friends, preying on traumas that we can't erase. Let us talk to each other, let's encourage mental health. Let us join our forces and put end to suicides. I'm really getting tired not being in control of me, of my thoughts, of my health, of everything I love. I just need my mental health. Ndinepfungwa dzandinoda kuti dzitame, dzikadzoka inini handirare, dzikadzoka inini handifare, dzikadzoka inini handirare. Ndinepfungwa dzandinoda kuti dzitame, dzikadzoka inini handirare, dzikadzoka inini handifare.
The clues to what I crave. My entry truly speaks my heart, as I wanted to convey that our well-being does not solely lie in material, but it is embracing things in life that may look simple to us. So I think my message would have resonated with young adolescents who are in the phase of truly understanding life and figuring out their springs of well-being. While music has been something I deeply cherish, I'm glad that I've incorporated music to deliver something really strong. Finally, a massive thank you goes out to all the organizers, to my beloved school, my supporters, and to those who loved my piece of art.
In a world of complexities, back then I would have thought the clues to what I crave lie in materials, but then turns out that it was compiled with blocks of life that demand to me much more than anything to say. Ooh, I'm proud of myself, my resilience. Ooh, your hands get me out of the deepest trench with all that I've learned. So what's kept me safe for all the nourishment that has made me grow? Well, that's what I've been needing all this time. All this time.
my song, I aspire to inspire anyone who listens to it, irrespective of their location, to find strength within themselves, believe in their abilities, and remain motivated to persevere. Also, I would like to mention that one of my teenager friends told me that when she was listening to my song, she was sad, but the song uplifted her and made her feel herself more powerful. I sincerely hope that my music resonates with people from every corner of the world, reminding them to prioritize their well-being and offering encouragement during challenging times.
Find the way you are. No one can instruct you. Find a show that's yours. Go ahead and break all walls. Don't listen to your guilty advisors. No more. Your brain is much more nice, ready to realize what's yours. Feel the sound of care. Change your theme. Keep your secrets safe. Never blame yourself in any case. Don't listen to your fears and uncertainties. No more. Your heart is much more nice, ready to realize what's yours. You can even break the walls you always try to say. You can change the color of yours, maybe land these different colors. You can save the better ones for many sticky Don't listen to your fears and uncertainties. No more. Your heart is much more nice, ready to realize what's yours. No more. You are so much more nice, ready to realize what's yours.
A very warm welcome to one and all present here today. I am Bhavi Barad and I am your moderator. You'll meet Kimberly, my co-moderator, in a little while. I am a UN India Yuva youth advocate for gender equality and youth development based in Delhi, the capital city of India. This is a comprehensive sexuality education session co-created by the Global Partnership Forum on CSE and our esteemed partners, the FCDO, Fòs Feminista, Plan International, UNESCO, UNFPA, WHO, and YLabs. They have brought us together for an important discussion about youth-led approaches to redefining sexuality education. Most of us who have had the privilege to understand and receive CSE would agree that it plays an integral role in the lives of young individuals. The right kind of CSE empowers one and all with accurate information and skills to make informed decisions about our sexual and reproductive health. Today, we have gathered with global youth leaders who will emphasize on the importance of CSE, the need for action, and what we can do about it. Before we hear it from our inspiring speakers, let's unpack what CSE means for each one of us. If you were to describe your experience of CSE in 3 words, what would they be? We have a link in the chat box. You can click and answer. But please only use 3 words to describe your experience. We'll soon be able to look at the results and see what a collective response has been. So let's get going.
Para mí, la educación sexual integral es una herramienta fundamental para que todas las
For
personas
me,
podamos
integral
ejercer
sexual
nuestra
education is
sexualidad de manera libre.
crucial.
Para eso es primordial entender y defender a la ESI como un derecho humano que a la vez nos habilita el ejercicio de otros derechos. Con la ESI podemos decidir sobre nuestra sexualidad de manera libre y autónoma, y a la vez podemos liberarnos de prejuicios, estigmas, imposiciones sociales a través del acceso a la información y espacios de escucha con empatía. La ESI es la bandera de mi activismo porque
Safe living
tiene
in
el
this
potencial
space.
de cambiar
This is
nuestra
a
vida.
flag of
En
positivism
Argentina
because
tenemos
it
una
can
ley de educación
change
sexual
our
integral
life.
de
In
la
Argentina,
vanguardia
we
de
have a
la
law
región, la
for
única en
integral
Latinoamérica
sexual
registrada desde
education
7 años.
of avant-garde.
En
It's
la
the only
capital
one
de
in
nuestro
Latin
país,
America, and it
la
has
ciudad de
16
Buenos
years
Aires,
already.
el 80%
In our
de
capital,
los
Buenos
menores
Aires,
de edad que denuncian
80%
abusos
of
sexuales fue
minors
luego de tener una
suffer
clase de ESI
sexual
en la
abuse
escuela. Sin
before
embargo,
they
vemos de
had
primera mano
sexual
cómo la
education
misma
in
es
school.
aún puesta en cuestión y su implementación
But
no se hace
this
efectiva
is
en
still
todos los
questions
territorios de la misma
that
forma.
the implementation
Por
of
eso es
this law is
crucial que como jóvenes
not
nos
the same in the
organicemos para
whole
defendamos su
territory. So that
importancia
is
de
crucial
forma
that
global.
we as youth
Como joven activista,
gather
también
and
reto a los jóvenes
understand
que
the
tengo la
global
posibilidad diaria de poner
importance
en la
of it,
agenda temáticas que me movilizan
and
como
put
persona
in the
joven
agenda
y a la vez
themes
poder
that
construir junto a
mobilizes us
compañeros
as
jóvenes
youth
los
so we
proyectos.
can
Creo
build
que la
our
ESI es
projects
fundamental,
together.
pero esa ESI debe ser realmente
Uh,
participativa y horizontal.
Integral sexual education is
Muchas
key,
veces somos
and
únicamente
oftentimes we
destinatarios
are
de las
simply
políticas o de los proyectos que buscan
receivers of
solucionar
the
nuestras
policies
necesidades
or
como
projects
jóvenes,
that try
pero
to
también
solve our
debemos
needs
ser las
as
personas
youth.
jóvenes
But we
quienes
should
hagamos llegar
also
a los
be
tomadores de decisión
those
cuáles
who
son los
take
temas que nos preocupan,
decisions
la
on
información que
what
queremos recibir,
topics
la
are of
forma en
our
que
concern,
queremos
what
recibir
information
ESI e
we
incluso
want,
ser
the
nosotros
way
las
we
personas
want to
jóvenes las que
receive this
tomemos
education,
roles de liderazgo
and
y de
the
decisión.
youth should be the
Sigamos
ones
defendiendo
taking
la
the
ESI
lead
siempre.
in
Gracias
decision-making
por el espacio.
processes. Thank you for this space.
That was our global youth leader from Argentina, lead of ESCONCI, Lucia de Matteo, associated with Fòs Feminista. A very warm welcome to Palemo Nyajo from Nigeria, an inspiring global youth leader and an amazing speaker associated with Plan International. We'll be hearing from her now. Can we please have the video of Palemo here?
Hi, I'm Pelulu Nyaju, the Shadow Country Director of Plan International Nigeria, and I am disabled. So, there are a lot of myths surrounding disability and sexuality. I'm going to be reading a few of them to you right now. So the first one is, people with disabilities can't have sex. The next one is, people with disabilities should be protected from romantic relationships. The third one is, people with disabilities are asexual. Okay. The fourth one is, People with disabilities are sexually and emotionally immature. And the last one is people with cognitive disabilities can't give consent. As you can see, there are a lot of questions around persons with disabilities and sexuality education. Comprehensive sexuality education in the disability context is very vast, but I'm going to stick to two things. The first is inclusion, and the second is bodily autonomy. Inclusion means integrating the views and lived experiences of young people with disabilities into comprehensive sexuality education. This can be through access in infrastructure, access in educational materials, remembering that we are a heterogeneous group, and representation through media and storytelling. What are the stories we're telling about persons with disabilities? And remember that inclusion only exists because exclusion already did in the first place. Secondly, we have bodily autonomy. As young persons with disabilities, we have an exclusive right over our bodies, and we should be able to make informed decisions about our bodies and our relationships. To make these decisions, we need to have knowledge about our sexual and reproductive health and rights, and this knowledge will be able to empower us to protect ourselves from sexual exploitation and abuse. And remember, you don't have to answer questions like these. My people have never been feeble. We create our language in signs when we can't hear the world. We see through our hands when our eyes won't respond to light. We march in wheels when our legs get tired. My people have never been feeble. And if this isn't magic, to create a way where there seems to be no way, if we aren't magic, then I don't know what is. Disability should be normalized in CSE. Thank you.
That was quite insightful. Thank you for shedding light on the rich tapestry of experiences within the specially abled community. Now let's hear it from Joshua Okier from Ghana, a young researcher who will be sharing about his co-authored paper with WHO on reaching out to young people living with HIV and AIDS and young people in detention with comprehensive sexuality education. Please continue to ask questions in the chat box and keep the comments coming whilst we heard it from these speakers. Can we please have the video?
My name is Joshua Okier, and in about 2 minutes, I'm going to share some findings from a research I conducted with some colleagues on adolescents out of school who are living in detention. In this study, we found some 3 major themes being the needs of adolescents in detention. And the first one has to do with the personal hygiene of the people living in detention. Imagine living in a communal space where you have to share your toilet facilities, bathrooms, and dormitories with other people. In such instances, issues about hygiene is not just necessary, it is an imperative, and it is also an issue of dignity. So all the adolescents we interviewed who were in detention cried for policies and then programs that are going to help them get the necessary resources to be able to maintain their personal hygiene in their communal space in detention. Additionally, there was the issue about comprehensive sexuality education. Specifically, it shows from our findings that adolescents in detention lack knowledge about consent. In fact, that was one of the main reasons why most of them ended up in detention. And so they also suggested and also showed us that that was one of their needs that must be fulfilled. And then the last aspect has to do with the medium through which they get information on comprehensive sexuality education. So in Ghana here, the main source of information on comprehensive sexuality education to persons in detention was through the television. But this medium was so limiting that they do not have the opportunity to ask questions and get their questions answered timely and in an appropriate manner. As such, the young people living in detention called for reforms that are going to broaden the spectrum of medium where they can get information on comprehensive sexuality education. On this note, I will end and I will urge all of us to also prioritize young people living in detention and their sexual and reproductive health issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have a big round of applause for the brilliant speakers who have laid the foundation on what CSE is and why it's important for young people, for all of us, and for our future. Now, before we move on to the questions, let's look at what it was like for us. Can we please have our responses on the screen? Please stay with us while we take the moment. Our tech team is looking into the glitch. Okay, it's taking a little while, but let's move on. We'll look at the responses in a while. Please continue to stay with us as we draw from the research and insights in the next section as we reimagine comprehensive sexuality education together. Introducing my new friend, Kimberly from Zimbabwe. Let's welcome her to lead us into another exciting segment.
Thank you so much, Babi. I'm very excited to be leading us through this next session. So, my name is Kimberly and I'm turning 21 tomorrow. I am an SRHR advocate, mostly focusing on digital advocacy, and I'm representing Plan International Zimbabwe. And I'm very excited to be attending this comprehensive sexuality education session. So now we will be hearing from Gary Lane from YLabs on their global research findings on the future of sex education, and Chidima, a UNESCO youth representative who, driven by personal, has used her early experiences of abuse to power activism for comprehensive sexuality education. She has also contributed to leading change in Nigeria through contributions to the West and Central Africa commitment. Before giving a very warm welcome to both of them, whilst listening to these great speakers, we want to ask you the question, what 3 words would you use to describe the impact of comprehensive sexuality education if it was designed by you? So now we're going to have the video from Chidima and Gary Lane.
Hello, my name is Gary Lane and I'm a content writer at YLabs, a design and research nonprofit working to amplify youth power. I'm excited to share with you today the results of the Future of Sex Education, a first-of-its-kind youth-driven research project to reimagine what sex education could look like. I want to give a sincere thanks to all our research participants, advisors, and supporters who made this body of work possible. In 2022, we conducted a global mixed method study involving almost 13,000 youth and key stakeholders across Nigeria, India, El Salvador, and the USA. Our research focused on understanding what youth want to learn about sex and how they prefer to learn it. Key questions were, what information about sex and sexuality do youth want? How do they want their sex education delivered? What role should parents, teachers, and healthcare providers play? Our findings reveal several insights. Young people do not have a single trusted resource for sex education. Silence from caregivers about consent and bodily autonomy is leading to early, coercive, and traumatic sexual experiences. Focusing mainly on biology leaves youth unprepared to navigate the emotional and psychological aspects of their sexual behavior and identity. Youth are also learning about sex in isolation, preventing them from understanding the experiences of people with different gender or sexual orientations. Youth define pleasure as psychological safety and consent. From our quantitative research, we found that 1 in 4 youth have never received any sex education. Of those, 81% are sexually active. Youth are also having sex for the first time at a very early age. 12.7% of our research participants were less than 10 years old, and 17.3% were between 10 to 14 years old. Finally, females and non-binary youth are much more likely to be unsatisfied with sex education compared to their male and cisgender peers. Based on the study, we identified 5 key principles for what youth want in sex education. First, the future is more than biology. Sex education should discuss the experiences youth face around peer pressure, sexual urges, and navigating sex in their relationships. Second, sex education should elevate young people's definition of pleasure, focusing on agency, safety, consent, and exploration without judgment. Third, sex ed should leverage emerging digital technologies to reach more youth with on-demand information. Fourth, sex ed should empower parents and caregivers to serve as effective guides for youth. Lastly, sex ed should be inclusive, recognizing and upholding the diverse experiences and challenges faced by young people. The future of sex education is designed with and by young people. As fellow youth and allies, we encourage you to join the conversation on the future of sex ed through our social media kit and help advocate for a future where youth-led sex education is the norm.
Thank God I was able to understand myself and decide to be who I want to be. But what about other people? What about other children? So if we want to make a change when it comes to sexual health issues, and we know the people that suffer the effects more are women and girls, we need men and boys to work with us. It's really hard. Even the government, most of the people in the place of power, they are men. But it's hard to create policies that support women and girls because they don't suffer the effects. So they don't understand, they don't know. The older ones are not helping us. They don't give us the right information. For the upcoming generation, the young people, there is a great chance for them to change the systems. If we have young parents who are deliberately putting an effort to creating children who are respectful, who understand human dignity, who are working with the other gender, who are saying no to gender bias and sexism and all of those things, then there can be change. You know, young parents, they need to learn, they need to have access to information, they need to know all of these things, they need to know the rights of the child, they need to know all of these things because they are the ones that are going to be the first players in educating the child. So it's not just about one person, it's a collective thing. Even organizations, NGOs, they are doing their best, but they still need government to also take action. My past will never go away, but it shouldn't stop me from helping others. I feel like it is also part of my story. Everybody who has become great in life has a story. The difference is that they were able to navigate these things and they were also able to use it as a tool to bring change to their world. And so that's why I'm proud.
Thank you so much, Chidima and Gurlane, for that. For our final speaker, we're going to have, I'm very happy and honored to be introducing the Deputy Commissioner at the National Health Mission Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in the Government of India, Dr. Zoya Ali Rizvi. I hope I pronounced that well. Who is going to tell us about how India is listening to young people and their needs when it comes to comprehensive sexuality education. Dr. Zoya, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Kimberly. It was you pronounced it beautifully. That's the way it is pronounced. So thank you so much. So I would just like to mention about what Government of India is doing. I think as a government, we are actually listening to the young people, whether we are accessing them through the platforms of schools or communities or even facilities. So we are one of the countries who already is implementing a national adolescent health program that is young people, and we have trained our medical officers and our auxiliary nurse midwives, the ANMs, and the counselors to talk about the importance of sexual reproductive health. SRH being a very important part of young people, as I've been listening also, every young person who's accessing our adolescent friendly clinics, and we have more than 7,800 across our country. We are home to more than 253 million adolescents in our country, and this number also is not enough. So every year we are adding the number of adolescent friendly clinics where our trained healthcare providers are able to talk about various issues, including sexuality, including gender problems, including access to safe services, whether it is access to napkins, or whether it is access to safe contraception, sorry, or it is access to safe spaces. So that is how we are training a lot of our healthcare providers. But that is one part. Second part also is that within the community and within schools, we are creating what we call the peer educators, because we realize that young people are often affected by, supported by, and also helped by their own peers. So once these selected peer educators are also trained on various issues of sexual reproductive health, of nutrition, of prevention of non-communicable diseases, of sexuality, of keeping themselves safe away from violence, gender-based violence, and of course, issues of mental health. So this is something, because we realize that health is an umbrella, which if you're including sexuality education, everything else has to come hand in hand, because information regarding every other health also is related to sexuality. So it's important to see a young person with all the other issues which may affect him, her, or them. So with that, the peer educators are selected, and we have more than 250,000 peer educators across our country. And these young people, whether in school or out of school, are trained over about 6 days with the help of the ANMs, the auxiliary nurse midwives, and supported by the counselor. So that is something else which is happening. And third thing which we are also doing regarding access to comprehensive sexuality education information is working with schools, because as a government we have realized is that about 7 to 8 hours every day a child is in school. So we are sensitizing, orienting school principals and training school teachers over 4 days on various health issues. Out of them, important part is of course access to and information on safe sexual reproductive health. So that is something which we realize that if teachers start talking about it, things will become kind of normalized for the young child to begin in schools, and from schools back to home, and from home into the community. So that, I think, is the kind of linkage which we are looking at. And with that in mind, we have already trained more than 350,000 school teachers on health and health related topics. And we believe that these are small steps which we are taking as a country, so that every child who is accessing health services in public health institutions or going to schools for education, or even within the community where the parents and the other stakeholders are informed during what we are calling the adolescent health days. These are very interesting events which deal with issues of sexual reproductive health among us within the community, so that talking about adolescent health becomes a regular thing. It's not something which have a special day. It's held about 4 times a year in communities in which people who are not from health, but within the parents, the elders, the village elders, they sit and they talk, and they're told about how important the health of every young adolescent, every young person is. So I think working in various aspects within the government, outside the government, we're trying to ensure that the voices of young people are heard, and they become a part and parcel of how the policies are made and the programs are implemented. So things will take time, but I think we are reaching there with our steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zoyali Rizvi. It's such a proud moment for me, being a young person from India, to reflect on India's profound commitment to the well-being and education of its youth. It fills up my heart with a lot of joy and pride. Thank you very much for your dedication and commitment that you've always shown to adolescent health and comprehensive sexuality education. You've rightfully said that it's important to look at sexuality education in intersection with all the other factors that affects an individual's health. I would now like to welcome everyone back as we move into a very interesting section of today. That's the question and answer section. I see a lot of questions have already started coming in. Our first question is to Dr. Zoya Ali Rizvi. It says, it's from Akelo Pasquin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but it says, can stress be a cause of hormonal imbalances? Can you please take that, ma'am?
That is such a risky question for me to take, because stress is such a generic word which is being used across board by a lot of people, which reflects physical, mental stress both. And yes, hormones are something which is dependent on how your body is reacting to the external environment also. So I would say stress can lead to hormonal disturbances, not imbalance per se, but broadly how you manage stress is also something which should be a part of how young people learn from each other, interact with each other. And yes, I would say stress can lead to a lot of other problems, whether it is connected to your sexual reproductive health, whether it's connected to nutrition, exposure to violence. So it's a very broad term. So there is no direct causality per se, but yes, it is a risk factor.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so are we afraid to ask questions or what? let me let me put it in words. There are no right or wrong questions. These are just words that are meant to sow the seeds of change in our minds. I'd read this somewhere, but please do not be afraid to ask questions. Are there more questions coming in? Okay, so there's one question that is, has there been any resistance from schools and teachers against comprehensive sexuality education? How does one tackle it? This is a question to our speakers. Any of the speakers can take it.
Yo la puedo responder.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucia.
Okay.
I can answer it. At least in the case of Argentina, where I live, there are, although we have a law about sexual education for 17 years already, there is a lot of resistance in among educators, not really teachers only, but because we have to understand that there are many prejudices about comprehensive sexual education. There's still resistance, and I like to say, and what we like to implement to overcome that is understanding sexual education as a right. And this cover many other topics related to affection, emotion, not only body, but how do I interact with others. It also includes talking about diversity and recognize our own rights. So comprehensive sexual education has to be adapted according to the age bracket. And this also helps to understand and take out this prejudice. Oh, they are talking about sex to my children in school. This is not the case. There are many ways to approach sexuality in a comprehensive way, adapting to it. Yes, there are resistance, but that's why we have to say that comprehensive sexual education is a right. And as such, try to raise awareness what means to be comprehensive, and we have to validate that each age has to be taught in a different way according to their capacity of comprehending. Thank you for the opportunity of answering this question.
Thank you very much, Lucia. Thank you so much for answering that. Okay, our next question is to Chidima. Can you please take this question? What is the right time to give sex education to our kids?
Hi, that question is very important because here in Nigeria, we live in a society where there are a lot of issues like gender-based violence, female genital mutilation, child marriages. And when we ask what the right time is, I believe that the best time to give comprehensive sexuality education to our children should be in their formative years. Once they are able to make sense of life, they should be able to learn about their bodies, they should be able to learn about abstinence, they should be able to understand the right things they need to do. They should be able to learn about love and respect and human dignity. When they're able to do that, they're able to stand up and speak up for themselves. When they see something happening to somebody else that is wrong, for instance, there's sexual harassment happening here and there, and people don't understand what sexual harassment is because they don't know. If the children are able to learn about themselves, learn about bodily autonomy, when they go out in schools, they go out in the society, they're able to speak up when something goes wrong. They're able to talk back to their parents, talk back to older people and say, this is what I've seen. And they can be able to profess solutions to them. Age-appropriate information is important for children, and their formative years are the best years because they're able to take information and they're able to then filter those information as they grow older. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've rightly put it in words that comprehensive sexuality is for individuals across different age groups, and it's supposed to address all the specific needs and concerns that come with it. Our next question is to Gary. Can you please take this question? I think it'd be interesting to know that if you have some good examples of how to get parents on board with comprehensive sexuality education.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. From some of our projects that we've done at YLab, something we always keep in mind is to ensure that we include parents right from the beginning of the project. That way they feel, first of all, really included in the solution themselves, but they also get to see the reality, what the reality is on the ground. And when they get to see the numbers, when they get to see what's really happening to young people out there, they are then more likely to also be involved, to also be supportive, and to really be willing to engage in CSE with their kids, but also to support any and all programs that we bring on board. A mistake we don't want to make is to make parents think that we want to we do things in silos and want them to implement them to some without really involving them. They want to feel involved. They want to feel that they are part of the solution. So if you make them feel that way, they'll be very supportive and they will be willing to really to engage with the services and the products and whatever.
Thank you very much, Gary. I think it's very important to take people along in this process as we all are learning, and especially it's difficult for our parents as well because they belong to a different generation. And which is why I think I'm going to take another question and I'm going to go to Joshua. Have you experienced any difficulty? What has been the response of parents in teaching and talking about comprehensive sexuality education?
Thank you, but I think one of the main issues to do with parents being shy of initiating education.
I'm sorry, Joshua, but your voice isn't clear. Could you please try speaking again?
Hear me now.
Maybe you can try switching off your video for a bit.
Hello?
It's difficult. Okay, no worries. We will go back to you, Gary, since you have already spoken about how can we take parents along, and we are going to come back to Joshua with another question in a while. Gary, could you please take this question and shed some light on what has been some of your experiences in taking the parents along?
Parents really have many questions, and I've actually, my experience has been really in working on implementing sort of like digital platforms. And when engaging parents, first of all, they are very hesitant because it's digital and most of them aren't really used, they don't really trust digital stuff. So there has been that issue of trust. But again, when you tap them right from the beginning with them, and and you are patient and you involve them in trainings are very important because just teaching them what the right terminology is, sort of like pointing holes in some of their preconceived ideas and myths. That really helps. So yeah, digital platforms, they may have they will tend to have a lot of questions. They tend to have trust issues in the beginning. But my experience has been that if you continue walking the road together, eventually some of them will start to be understanding. You actually start to see some of their behavior and myths and thoughts change along the way, which has been something that I've really loved to see the change not only in young people, but also within their parents and within the support systems around them.
Right. Thank you, Gary, for sharing your experience with us. It is really meaningful and insightful to hear it. Palermo, I would like you to share your experiences since we haven't heard from you yet. What has been your experience in working on CSE in your community?
Okay, thank you so much, Bobby, for that question. I would say it has been really difficult. So I work with the Dutch Embassy, and we were supposed to collate some data on what young people think about their comprehensive sexuality education. And I was specifically assigned to reach the hard-to-reach youth from different demographics. Like I said before, young people are not a homogeneous group or heterogeneous. So I was trying to reach young people from underrepresented groups, and it was really difficult because they were very cautious. What do you want to know about me? Why do you want to know this about me? And it was very difficult to reach them and get them to tell me how they felt about it because, like we've said here, it is seen as a taboo topic in Nigeria specifically. So I think approaching it with a certain type of caution and being context specific on how I approach CSE has helped me to reach the youths and talk to them. So I think CSE should be holistic, but while being holistic, I feel like we should be targeted towards certain demographics, like young persons with disabilities. It's completely different for them. And then when you're speaking to girls, CSE is different for them. And then when you're speaking to boys, CSE is different for them. So I would say it's been difficult to reach adolescents and young people, but then it has been a learning process. And I think there's so much more that we can do, and giving us the enabling environment to have these conversations will really help us get to the next level with CSE.
Thank you, Palermo. I think it's important to understand that one size cannot fit all, and it's important to contextualize comprehensive sexuality education. And you have clearly led us to our next segment, which is to redefine redefine what sexuality education can look like for us. So over to you, Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Bobby. We have listened to the speakers and we know the situations in our countries regarding comprehensive sexuality education. So I would like to pose a question to the audience and our panelists in the sense that how do you think that comprehensive sexuality education right, we have listened to the speakers, and as we listen to the speakers, the question that I want to ask you is, what single action will you take in terms of improving the situation with comprehensive sexuality education in your country? May we please give very brief answers, and after giving our brief answers, we also give the audience the platform and they're going to share in the chat. So firstly, I will go to Joshua. Hopefully your network is now okay. Please tell us on one single action that you would do in order to improve the situation in your country when it comes to CSE.
All right, Kimberly, thank you very much. I will say that we need total member involvement. every person has to be involved, each stakeholder, so from parents to the adolescents themselves, to the policymakers. We need to bring everyone together and understand that the needs of adolescents are not the same everywhere. So the comprehensive sexuality education we want to deliver must be context specific, very taking into consideration the culture of the environment and also the needs of the people over there. So it's a total member involvement approach that we need. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joshua. And from now, we're going to go back to Pelemo. Pelemo, what single action would you take?
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm a creative, I'm a poet, and I think the media is a huge tool to help to spread awareness, and also it can make or mar a certain topic. And I think CSE has been pushed by the media in a certain way that makes parents and other people scared of the topic. So what I would say is I would like to use the media as a tool for good when it comes to CSE, and use the creative arts to push awareness on how CSE is important for adolescents and young people specifically, and try to reach the harder to reach youth, like the young persons with disabilities. So media, thank you.
Thank you so much, Pelemo. So we'll also hear from Gary.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. That's a really good question. And I think what I'm going to do personally, and what I encourage everyone really to do, is to not always think about starting over every single time. I mean, through this session alone, we've seen many resources. We've heard of many resources. We've seen the numbers. We've heard of the research, and we can build onto that, or we can use it to include it in our products or the stuff that we are building, instead of always starting over. Young people almost all over the world are facing the same problem, and so using some of the resources from other places and just contextualizing to whatever context you're going to, that can really help, instead of always feeling like you have to start over or you have to be doing things from scratch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary. So, Dr. Zoya, please tell us one single action that you also want to take.
Really, yeah, okay, that's a good question, but very difficult for me. But I would say that for me, as a person working at the national level, it's very important for me to keep advocating for importance of adolescent health, not just within health, but also with our partner ministries of education and welfare, so that we get not only ownership, but we get adequate funds every year.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zoya. Bobby, let's hear from you.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Thank you very, very much, everyone. You all have been a lovely audience. Thank you for engaging with us and taking out time to stay throughout the session. Your engagement and commitment to this important topic is truly appreciated. Let's continue to take this discourse forward in our own communities, in and around us, and let's promote greater awareness and understanding for healthier and more informed lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bobby. As for me, I think the problem that we have is the issue on information gap. So in my country, one thing that I would like to put in place is disseminating correct and comprehensive education, and making people know that making comprehensive sexuality education is not corrupting young people's minds, but then it's giving them the power to make informed decisions for themselves. And comprehensive sexuality education should be a basic right for each and every young person. And I've seen some of the answers in terms of what it would look like. But for me, if it was designed by me, it would look like accessibility, safety, and friendly. Because we've seen that in the past years, young people have not been friendly to access information, to access services, and to talk about themselves, their sexuality, relationships, and all that in a free environment. So I feel like that's one thing that I would focus on in my country, giving young people a space and platform to talk about what they think, giving them the right to express themselves. And I believe that if you give young people a space to express themselves, then they'll excel and then they'll make better decisions. So with this being said and done, thank you so much to everyone who is connected, and we thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we'll use the information that we got here to implement some changes in our countries. And this is it from me, from the stakeholders, from Bavi and myself. We say thank you so much for connecting.
Thank you.